Alright, hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. This, of course, is another anime reaction video. Today, we're back with some more Daily Lives of High School Boys. I'm so excited to get into more of this because the last two episodes were fucking amazing. We got introduced to a whole lot of characters, and we just had a whole lot of fun in general, with a lot of fucking just disgustingly hilarious shenanigans going on, you know. Of course, the ones that always will stick in my head is the one that a lot of people who maybe haven't even seen this show know about, that being, the shit with, Tarakuni and Hidenori, I believe, and, Yoshitake. I hope I'm getting these names right. Messing around with Tarakuni's little sister's clothes. I'm really excited to get more into this show, and I can't wait to see what great comedy we're gonna get, because with the amount of Gintama characters, like the amount of characters in this show that share voices with Gintama characters, just really, for me personally, enhances a lot of the comedy. So I'm really excited to get more. As always, unless you're new here, there will be links down in the description below that will take you to the full-length, uncut reaction, so you can, of course, follow one of those links, watch the reaction, and then you can come back to YouTube for the discussion. With that all being said, let's get started with episode 3 of the Daily Lives of High School Boys. Except for there's no the in the name, it's just Daily Lives of High School Boys. I just feel so compelled to put the at the beginning whenever I'm talking about it, but whatever, I'm gonna get started now. Alright, I definitely won't be able to keep this up for the rest of the series because I'll end up forgetting, but between the first 3 episodes that I've seen so far, episodes 1 through 3 obviously, this episode is, personally for me, rivaling episode 1 for how funny it is. Like, if I were to rank them, it would be 1 and 3 are about equal, and then episode 2 was a bit less funny than the first and third episodes, but still a great episode, obviously. I think, what would be my favorite gag from this entire episode? Oh, my favorite gag would probably have to be the train one, because it's basically just another version of, from the first episode, where Hidenori was on the, he has terrible interactions with girls. The first time, obviously, being in the first episode, with the girl on the hill when he was reading. And the whole thing, despite technically not much happening, like, in terms of visuals on screen, just, like, the concept, and listening to his internal struggle with what exactly he wants to do in regards to this girl that he's not even shared a single word with, it just works so well with me, because it's partially because it's, like, kind of really relatable as well, where you're just standing there, at least for an introvert like me. I always overthink the fuck out of what I want to say when I'm either going to initiate a conversation with somebody, or if I'm typing in the comments, even then, even with, like, anonymity of the internet and whatever, even when I didn't show my face online ever, I would still, like, stress about exactly how I want to word things, and I would spend, like, upwards of an hour just, like, typing and retyping things to make sure it sounds right. So I can relate to Hidenori here, but the fact that he grew a pair and actually asked, that's commendable, and the fact that it worked out as well, not as well as I assume he might have hoped, because it ended up just being like, oh, thanks, I didn't notice, anyway, see you later, and then she probably forgot he existed, and he's just kind of like, oh. Like a slap in the face and calling him an idiot for commenting about a woman's body, and then being mad about it for the rest of the day probably would have been preferable to him, because at least he wouldn't have been forgotten. Because now she hasn't met this weirdo on a train who stares at her and then makes fun of her mole or whatever she might have thought. Now he's just some random guy she met that pointed it out, and then she's like, oh, okay. And then, you know, forgets about him, obviously. She would have remembered him longer if she had a more, like, angered response. But, I also really loved the gag at the end with the high school girls are funky, or whatever it was called. High school girls are funky. That was a really good gag. Especially because Sa-chan was there. I love her. So, yeah, just like the clever twist on like basically the same story. It's like the same story again, but this time, but this time with girls. And I was blind, but when I was watching that segment, I pointed out that the purple-haired girl was still wearing a skirt, but it was the girl that she was hugging and rolling on the floor with that had the boy's uniform on. I noticed that now. Great episode. Can't wait to get to the next episode, episode 4, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. You know, Sachan was saying that she was she felt bad for the high school boys because they're so good at fighting and shit, but they're getting relegated to like a slice of life comedy. It's still good. It's still good. All right, another goddamn high quality episode of the show, and thankfully we didn't really have too many interruptions, other than the one at the very beginning for this episode. I really love this episode, especially because it felt more like a complete episode that was really, how do I explain this? A lot of the other episodes are hysterical, obviously, but they had a lot of segments that just happened next to each other, and they weren't really like connected in any way. So it was really fun to watch these episodes where they connect to each other, and it feels like there's like a sense of unity with how it works, because it had, what was great is because it had the gag at the beginning of of Tadakuni feeling like he's grown distant from his friends, but it actually being just people that looks like, or when he goes to do something about it, it ends up just being people that look like his friends. And then it gets to the main meat of the episode, and that's the two student council presidents between the all-boys school and the, I assume, all-girls school in Sanda. Then it has 3 segments dedicated to it, and then it brings it all right back around at the end to Tadakuni's very real insecurity that his friends don't like him anymore, and they're just slowly like cutting him off. And you know, I don't think about that sort of thing too often because I try to distract myself a lot from the sad things in real life, because it's a lot less sad to think about those kinds of things a lot. I genuinely don't plan for the future, as terrible as that sounds. Like, and that's why I procrastinate on a lot of schoolwork, but just seeing that's kind of something I've felt at various points in my life. And so just like seeing it sort of being brought to the surface in the form of an anime character is always cool. It's always cool to be able to see an anime character you can personally relate with. So even though they turn into a funny gag that ties to the very beginning of the episode, it not only makes it something like that hits home and is relatable, but it's also something that's just generally really funny. Especially with the way they just brought it back up. Because it's a good use of reincorporation. Reincorporation is usually pretty obvious. Like if they put emphasis on something that's seemingly unimportant, and they really if it's something that seems unimportant, but then they really put a lot of emphasis on it for no reason, then it's usually safe to say that it'll come up in the future. And I think you could say that it's kind of obvious that even though it probably won't be in any serious capacity, that they were going to bring up Tadakuni's insecurities later in the show. But the whole up until it started getting closer to the end of that segment, I didn't really figure they were going to bring that joke back again, but I'm so glad they did. That was really good. The fighting in between the two student councils was entertaining as well. I wish the president of the all-boys school would have fought back a little bit better, because he seemingly didn't get a single hit in. And I want to say, and I don't know if this is true, but I want to say that maybe he lost on purpose, because even though he's constantly teasing Ringo, the girls' school's student council president, deep down he like cares about her as a person, and it's more like they have a friendly competition. But because he's just getting so upset by the fact that she's getting beaten, he thought he'd give her at least one win before the school festival is over. Which, if that's the case, that's kind of nice. But I'm not that nice of a person. I still wish he beat her into the dust and sort of rubbed it in her face, because she acted so smug. Like a lot of the girls in this episode were just so smug and so above it all. And again, I don't think that's exclusive in real life. That's not exclusive to just girls. That also applies to men too. And I think it's in this case this sort of like teen above it all type thing is more of a teenager thing. Because I was never that bad when I was a kid, because I was always an introvert and a shy person. I didn't talk to very many new people outside of my friend group. I didn't talk to many people, but I always felt like, ugh, why do I have to do this thing? It's so beneath me type thing, you know. So I can kind of get it. Doesn't make me any less happy about some of the bullshit the girls were pulling in this episode, like that shit with Yoshitake. I thought they were just like trying to strike up conversation so they could get friendly and just hang out with each other so it's not as boring. But no, she just ended up having to be a bitch about everything. And And then the end where they're saying that high school boys have no use and that they should all die. Kurosawa was cool though. Anyway, really enjoyable set of episodes. Really excited to see more of this show. But with that being said, thank you very much for watching. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. And make sure to also hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you don't miss a single upload in the future. That all being said, thank you once again for watching. Peace.